Hello, and welcome to the Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, where you and I get to learn more about prenups as I interview professionals from the fields of family law, couples counseling, and wealth management. I'm your host, Libby Garabedian. Let's get started. The information provided in this podcast is prepared by Our Prenup Lawyer for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. This is not legal advice or a substitute for obtaining legal advice from an attorney. A person listening or watching should not rely upon it in any manner without engaging professional counsel. The podcast is intended to communicate general information and, because recorded, may not be current. On this episode of Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, I'm joined by Molly Rubesh. Molly is a trauma-informed coach, speaker, and author who helps women navigate healing, identity shifts, and personal growth. Her work focuses on guiding clients to reconnect with their authentic selves and build lives rooted in self-worth and emotional well-being. Hi, Molly. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm excited to learn more about what you do as a coach. So before we get into that, can you tell me why you became a marriage and divorce coach?
Yeah, it actually happened by accident. I was in corporate America for 20 years. I was in sales and I ended up going through a divorce in 2017. My kids were 9 and 7 at the time. And I then went through like a major loss with my dad passing away. And so I decided I needed to take a step back from corporate America and just really focus on my family. I had been since remarried after my divorce. And so my husband really supported the change. And so I just took a break and I wrote a children's book about grief. And I was going to be a children's book author, and that was going to be like my mission. But that didn't work out that way. I did write the book and started talking about that. And then I hired a coach, and then she helped me really see where my strengths were in coaching. And so I started coaching women. I was a life coach. And then it kind of took its own personality. So many people, so many themes were there where like it was relationships. Some people were struggling with divorce. Some people were struggling in their current marriage to make their marriage more enriched and loving and fulfilling. And so it has kind of morphed into a relationship, marriage, divorce coach because that is my own personal story. And I love to coach women on things that I also have experienced. And I've had two very different marriages, so I can speak from both sides of it and then also really be fully embodied in what I'm telling people is something that I also have lived.
That's wonderful. And I really like the point where you mentioned how your husband supported you through this change because obviously life isn't linear, and being able to
Right,
have someone at home who's helping you, and supporting you along the way
for sure.
is is so important. So, as a coach, you help women navigate health healing, identity shifts, and personal growth. What does that process typically look like?
It's it's really person specific. So I don't have like, oh, you come and like we first do this worksheet and then we do that worksheet. It really works on who are they and how are they showing up in this life. Most women that come to me are deep empaths where they feel everything really deeply. They're functioning codependents, or as Terry Cole likes to say, high functioning codependents, which really um, we're deeply invested in the emotional states and the well-being of all of those people around us, which then is at our own detriment. And so, so many women come to me in that same state where they just don't want to let anybody down. And they've been giving so much to all people in all areas of their life that they are finally like so depleted and exhausted. And it's time to make a pivot, make a change. And sometimes that is, in their marriage.
What about how does coaching someone, a client through divorce, look different when they have a prenup versus when they don't have one?
From my job, I'm not a lawyer. So I help really hold the client and the woman like in their emotions in this really heavy, like, how do I take off my ring and announce to the world that I'm a divorced woman? How do I tell my kids? How do I have tell my in-laws? And how do I just spend the night alone for the first night? How do I navigate my first Christmas without my kids? So I really help them in that space. And so whether they've had a prenuptial agreement or they haven't doesn't really matter as far as like how much I can support them. But I am really a big advocate of prenuptial agreements because you're really signing one regardless. You're signing to the laws of the state, well, actually the state that you are getting divorced in, right? So
Mhm.
you you might as well have them be the terms that you understand and the terms that you agree upon. The hardest part for me as a divorce coach is really supporting women who are not only losing their quality of life, their home, but they have walked away from the workforce for 20 years. They've lost their credentials, their marketability. They don't have a 401k. They have to go back to work in addition to caring for the kids. And so they're feeling extremely vulnerable. And so I do believe that, especially if somebody's going to walk away from working, that there should be some really clear guidelines on how you're at risk. And that if you're getting a divorce, and you were a stay-at-home mom for a long time, that puts you in a huge vulnerable position. So prenuptial agreements, I don't believe should be just for the rich, like, oh, you can't have my assets. I think it should be this really clear, defined partnership of not only are we emotionally tying one another together, but we are actually legally partnering. And this is what will happen within our marriage. And if our marriage falls apart, I'm not going to be totally left in a vulnerable state.
Exactly. I love how you put that, making sure that there is that security in the relationship because of sacrifices, concessions that are made when people start building a life together. Those aren't, the workload at home isn't necessarily always appreciated in the way or valued in the way it should be.
Yeah. And that's really proven in like my own personal platform. Almost every single one of the reels or posts that I make talk about like women are like, yes, that is me. And then so many men say, take what you came with, leave. Divorce is a financial strategy for women. Women profit from divorce. And I want something to be extremely clear. I mean, I have never coached one single woman that has used her marriage and her divorce as a financial strategy. It's not like, you know what, I should get married and have kids and build a life with this other human, and then I'll divorce him, and then I'll have this major net worth. They
Right.
don't want the divorce. They want to stay in the home that they created with the father of their children. But if they did walk away from the workforce and they stayed to care for the kids, which daycare is outrageous, like his job, he could travel, he could take promotions, he could work late, he could take work dinner. She held down the fort. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, she wants all my money. Well, I think that's an offset or a very outdated view of like
Mhm.
what a woman is actually doing to provide. And so it's a mutual agreement. If a woman is stepping away from work, like I'm talking to any young woman who is now getting married, and she's like, I'm going to have my baby and I'm going to stay home. Well, then you need to put some really defined policies in place. And I know that doesn't feel romantic and that doesn't feel loving. That just protects you in the event that this goes on for a long time and you are left then with nothing or a really solid prenup on the other end that again leaves you struggling.
With women who are, like you said, such deep empaths and are always putting someone ahead of themselves, whether it's their relationship, their spouse, or their children. When you start having to bargain with yourself in a relationship, what does that usually indicate about the health of that relationship?
you know, I always say like healthy, solid marriages don't seek out strangers on the internet to support them in their marriage. So if they're finding my page and it's resonating with them, that's the very first sign that maybe things are disconnected. If you're abandoning yourself, like your partner's job is not to completely fulfill your happiness. This is really your own job. So ideally, each partner has their own individual personality, attributes, life, and then they complement one another in a partnership versus like you are responsible for making me happy and I'm responsible for making you happy, and therefore neither one of us are happy, and then there's a big disconnect.
What does that, so complementing each other in a relationship, how does that create alignment for them?
Well, you know, we start out, most people get married fairly young, even in early 30s. It's still one third of our lives, right? So we learn and we evolve and we grow together. And to be able to have like our own independence is like the greatest gift that you can give your partner. Like, I don't need you to totally take care of me. I can take care of me because every human is fully capable of taking care of themselves. And we will be in alignment because I love you. I want to support you. I want to care for you. I want to be there for you and support you in your goals. Now, you have to feed everything to me and nurture me and care for me, and like at the expense of your own sovereignty and your own identity.
Right. I think a lot of women, maybe feel unworthy of putting themselves first, right? And putting their emotional needs first. And have you
Yes.
seen the reality show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives?
I haven't. I mean, I'm kind of familiar, but I have not watched that show specifically.
Well, a lot of the women I know are being super vulnerable and open about their struggles in the relationships, and Jessie Draper in particular, who I think it's been all over the internet. There was controversy surrounding her prenup with her husband Jordan and their pending divorce. But for someone like her who has been open about their feelings of self-worth, what advice would you give to other women about how they can learn to create new boundaries after a long-term relationship so that they're protecting their mental and emotional health moving forward?
Well, I really believe that everybody needs their own support system outside of their friends and family. So I personally have been in therapy. I have my own coach. I continue to have my own coach. Not only the first time in my life, I waited until I was going through divorce, and then I'm like, I need help. Well, really, the more that you can do to like work on your own self-worth by having somebody in your own support system and your mental health, the better off you're going to be in your relationships in other areas. So the stronger you'll be in your relationship with your spouse, the better you'll be as a daughter, a friend, a mother, a coworker. So so many times I think people wait until they've gotten to crisis of like, I have no self-worth. I've given everybody everything. Now I'm totally depleted and now I need help. But the human experience is full of really difficult things. And so if we can have that team and have that resiliency to be able to handle it and have somebody that's fully supporting us, it really is setting women up for more success. So I love anybody that's advocating for mental health awareness and for reaching out and not suffering in silence, because there's not a single person that is on this earth today that doesn't have their own internal narrative and their own internal struggle. And so everybody needs somebody to support them.
With social media, it can be really easy to put your self-worth in the hands of others and compare yourself and your relationships to what you see online. How do we avoid doing that?
Yeah, I mean, social media is a whole different beast. Putting myself out there on social media, I get all kinds of criticism, all kinds of really wonderful, beautiful messages of people saying, "Thank you so much for seeing me, for hearing me." And then I also get criticism of like terrible, horrendous things that I can't even. This is it would be too X-rated to put on here. So we're in a world where things are coming at us so fast, and we're consuming feedback and people are telling us what is right and what is wrong and what is good. And so, again, we have to be able to silence some of the social media, some of the external data that's always coming at us saying that we're less than. All of our teenagers are consuming stuff. And so it's really your own job to protect your own peace, turn off, get offline, go outside, do activities that bring you joy. We can't expect ourselves to be really healthy in our relationships, our marriages specifically, and in our friendships and our partnerships if we're not working on totally grounding ourselves in like our in real life. If we're scrolling on the internet and taking feedback from that and taking feedback from friends and gossiping and putting ourselves in toxic environments, you kind of are what you consume, right? So it's really important to kind of pull that back to yourself by giving yourself some limitations.
Right. And I love that point you made about you are what you consume. You're also, the people you surround yourself with. And so when someone goes through a divorce, they're obviously entering into a new sphere. And what does self-discovery look like for someone after divorce?
Well, I would love, ideally, I always tell my clients, I would love them to go from divorce to their own independence before they go into another relationship. Because if you go from one marriage straight to another relationship, you don't give yourself a ton of space in the in between. And so I really think that most of that growth happens like as you're unwinding from your marriage and as you're decoupling and understanding who you were in that marriage, who you really are without that marriage, who you are now in divorce, and then who do you want to be in this life? And whether you have one day or 50 more years to live, you got to figure out who you are in your independence before you then jump into another relationship and you get enmeshed in their habits and their personalities. So it's like self-discovery. Again, it involves having some solitude and your time away and not just consuming another relationship right away.
You think that may be why some people feel stuck in their marriage or after divorce because they're so relationship focused?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're hardwired for connection. So as humans, we're hardwired for connection and we want to be loved. We want to be chosen. Um, Women in the United States are, and actually all over the world, are conditioned to find their partner, find their life partner, be married, have kids. It's kind of like what we're sold. And that's not wrong, but we think that we're not complete unless we have our companion. And I love love. Love is such a great human experience. I am obviously remarried and I'm so thankful for it. But it's not the only thing that keeps me who I am. I have a job and a business that I love. I'm a mother. I'm a friend. I have lots of hobbies. I work out. I help take care of my mother. Like I'm so many other things than just a wife. And so some people lose their identity in that relationship. And so they feel like, who am I without the ring or who am I without that relationship? And they go from one straight into another for that safety and that security.
With your own clients who might have those similar struggles with identity, how do you go about helping them move past that and, branching out to see who they are besides, being a wife?
Well, I mean, each client is different. So I don't ever have the same steps, but it's finding I give them a ton of permission by asking them questions and who they are and what do they want in this life. And as we work together, I give them little projects, little strategies to put themselves out there. Some like as simple as go out to a restaurant and have dinner by yourself. They're like, the thought of sitting at a restaurant by myself or going to the movie by myself completely terrifies me. Like, okay, but you're not. I mean, what is it about that threat? Because it's actually pretty enjoyable. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's pretty enjoyable to eat dinner by yourself and just kind of have that your time, or travel, or go to a retreat, or find ways to like self-explore that doesn't constantly involve like I need to be looking at my phone or I need to be with a friend, or I need to be in another relationship. Like you are safe to be by yourself and like kind of come back to like listening because some women have silenced it for so long, they're uncomfortable in just connecting with their own individual soul.
It can be intimidating, but I think, you got to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Now, what advice would you give to someone listening who is considering coaching or maybe has some misconceptions about whether it will work for them?
You know, I think the very best thing that I did for myself in my life is hire a therapist and stick it out, and then hire a coach and stick it out. I am a better mom. I'm a better friend. I'm a better human. I'm a better wife because I have worked on my own personal development. There, in my opinion, there's nothing scary about sitting in front of somebody and saying, like, gosh, this life is hard. And I have heartache. Well, yeah, me too. Like, let's work through it. I have some self-doubt. Yes, me too. Let's work through it. I have limiting beliefs or people pleasing. There's not a single thing that somebody could tell me that I haven't heard that will shock me, that I would judge. And so I think that there's a lot of benefit in just like finding somebody that you can relate to and that can really help you thrive in this again human experience that is already complex enough. So you don't have to do it alone. I
Hmm.
just think you're doing yourself a disservice by not having the mental health support.
Exactly. Now, before we go, how can listeners reach you if they're interested in connecting?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's my name, Molly, Molly_Rubesh, Rubesh. That's probably the easiest way, or my website is mollyrubesh.com. And you can connect with me there or on Instagram. You can DM me. I'm pretty good at writing people back. So we connect.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Molly, for being here today and for sharing your insight. It was really great talking to you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
That's our show, folks. Thank you for listening to our prenup lawyer. Make sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment below. Follow us on Instagram at Our Prenup Lawyer, and listen to us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and watch us on YouTube. See you guys next time.